My name is Councillor Lynn Goodman-Bradbury. I'm the chair for the meeting. My vice chair is Councillor Gary Taylor. Welcome to all the members who are present. Thank you for coming along. To start the meeting, I need to mention that this meeting is being recorded, of course, and it's actually being live streamed. If any members of the public have got mobile phones, can I ask you to switch them to silent so that the meeting is not disturbed? And we are going to start first with public participation. So we have a member of the public, Gareth, and it was son and son-in-law, I think, are here. You have got 5 minutes to address the meeting, and then we will ask you to withdraw, and we will carry on with the meeting as set out in the agenda, Gareth, if that's okay. You will need to unmute yourself to start speaking, but Yola will inform you when you've had the time, if that's all right. Are you ready to join the meeting? Okay.
Yes, thanks very much. Good evening, everyone.
Okay.
I'm going to read from a document, I hope you don't mind.
No, that's absolutely fine.
That we put together. Good evening. I'm here to comment on the planning application of Shell Cove from the perspective of Bradenton House directly behind the development. I hope you all agree that it's essential this application is brought before the planning committee rather than left to a delegated decision, so it can be properly debated and discussed. Our primary point of concern is with the issue of cliff stability and the development's precarious proximity to the edge of the cliff. We have a number of, I've shown the report to a firm of geotechnical engineers and planners, and they noted that the geotechnical report submitted with the application, which covers cliff stability, was insufficient due to being a predominantly desk-based report with a lack of mathematical supporting calculations and sufficient data on the ground conditions. There was a lack of intrusive investigation required for undertaking a slope stability assessment. For slope stability analysis, they should have looked deeper to prove the base of the slope. If the slope is big, you don't have any idea of what is going to be beneath it. The geotechnical engineer I spoke to said that the report's conclusions were anecdotal and not evidence-based. I quote him, it is a generic recommendation, a visual inspection, and a generic engineering that is not good enough to demonstrate the stability. All the risk is in the ground. They haven't done enough work at the moment. There is an extreme risk, as I'm sure you're all aware, of a development of this nature that is not being fully understood here. I also do not see any comment on their proposed mitigation measures to ensure safety of the cliff. No one should need reminding about the financial and life-threatening costs that any potential negligence towards building on this precarious bit of land might have. Next points of concern. The impact of climate change on cliff stability and erosion has not been adequately considered. Network Rail noted the area is highly sensitive to the impact of climate change, including sea level change, storm events, and intensified precipitation. The very poor geotechnical characteristics of the high and unstable steep cliff line presents a particularly long-term risk. In 2018, the Committee on Climate Change stated that the current approach to protecting England's coastal communities from flooding and erosion is not fit for purpose as the climate changes. They found that coastal communities are already under significant pressure, and these threats will increase in the future. This ties in with the geotechnical report's reference to the outdated shoreline management plan, which is supposed to look at these risks and the rate of erosion on the cliff at Shell Cove. In short, there is not enough evidence to suggest that the development guarantees with absolute certainty that the site activity is not going to disturb the geological formation of the cliff and lead to loss of the cliff in the short or long term, and ultimately the homes which reside near to its edge. Neither does it give us confidence that there is sufficient lack of risk from the other coastal events such as subsidence and rockfall, coastal erosion and weathering, and the increasing effect of climate change upon this. In respect to the previous application on this topic, it was not determined with all the evidence that should have been presented at the time, which resulted in a lack of understanding of the issue. The proposed application constitutes overdevelopment in the local area. Almost all of the homes in the vicinity of Old Timoth Road are detached, low-density properties, and the proposal is for a high-density development. It is not sympathetic to local residents, the local area, or the coastal clifftop setting. The application should also be considered alongside the cumulative impact of the developer's proposal for large flats on the adjacent part of land. Both individually and collectively, this is an overdevelopment of the area and detracts from the low-density nature of vicinity. Detached bungalows, as was originally proposed, would be more appropriate. The main focus of Bradenton House, directly behind the development, is based around a first-floor, open-plan living area, including a main bedroom, which is largely glass-fronted. This home's amenity is almost entirely focused around the views of the coast and was designed as such. The new development has gone from 3 detached bungalows to 6 terraced 2-storey buildings to 6 terraced 3-storey buildings with large north-westerly facing windows, which infringes upon the privacy and amenity of Bradenton House. The new northwest elevations have much larger windows on the first floor compared with the previous scheme, and this increases the invasion of privacy. The planning authority's conclusions on the previous scheme in this respect therefore no longer hold true. The visual impact of the scheme is unacceptable in terms of seascape, coastal landscape, impact upon the amenity of Bradenton House and others. And although the building is outside the underdeveloped coast zone, it is adjacent to it and will impact on it nonetheless. In the design and access statement, it notes that the developer engaged with neighbours on the scheme, but there is no detail on what the engagement was, what the key issues were for neighbours and how the design was revised or not to address those concerns.
I'm sorry to interrupt, Gareth, but you've had more than your time, so if you could just round it up just now, please.
Yeah. As far as I can see, the design has not considered any comments from neighbours. It has in fact got worse, having increased in floors, increased in window size. The design and access planning statement or statement of community involvement should explain this, and it appears to be missing from the application. If the site must be built on, then it should be the detached bungalows originally agreed with green roofs and walls with a design sympathetic to the area.
Okay, I think, well, I'm confident that you'll feel that you've got your points across clearly for us all there, Gareth. So thank you very much for joining us. I don't know where we go from here, Yola, but I don't believe.
Gareth is very welcome to stay for the remainder of the meeting or until that item is discussed, but has to remain on mute, obviously, because you will be back in standing orders.
That's right. Thank you. So you have put yourself on mute, so that's great. Thank you. Right, I will carry on with the remainder of the business before we start with the first item. The first thing to mention is declarations of interest for members, please. Councillor Wrigley.
I'm going to declare an interest on the application number 4 for 28 Cofton Hill, which is next door to me.
Okay, thank you. As noted, Councillor Moorhood.
Just to say that at one time I stayed for about 9 months in a property at Shell Cove. I worked there part-time for a while. I'm very familiar with the site. I have no connection with the owners, current or past, anymore.
Okay, you just wanted to declare that not as an interest, but just
yes,
as
yes, it comes up. Yes,
that's fine. Okay, any other declarations of interest, or can we move on to the next point? Thank you. Okay, items requiring urgent attention. No, nothing at all. No. So I've already mentioned the Freedom of Information Act and the fact that all of the information held by the councils is freely available to the public. In fact, this meeting will be on our website. We are also going to be The Data Protection Act 2018 precludes the authority from publishing the names and addresses or private information of individuals unless written permission is given. Okay, so we're going to move on. I've already mentioned mobile phones, the fact we're being recorded, and we've had our public participation. Yola, let's get to the first bit, and apologies for absence, please.
I just have apologies from Councillor Main.
Councillor Main, thank you. We don't have a part 2 of this meeting, so we don't need to agree parts 1 and 2. We've had declarations of interest, dispensations, and now we need to have a look at the minutes of the final meeting, the last meeting on the 15th of May. Has everyone had a chance to have a read of that?
I've got the 21st.
I'm reading from the agenda, so hopefully it's the right date.
Oh, there's a mistake on the agenda. It is the 21st of May. The minutes are from, I think, the 15th. May well have been from a previous cut and paste. Apologies.
Absolutely. There we go. Well done, Councillor Moorhead. So that's the first thing we need to correct. Has anyone got any other things that we need to correct at all from the meeting minutes for last time? Is everyone happy for me to sign them as apart from the date, obviously, in correcting that as a true record? Can I have your hands to agree that that's the case? Thank you. That's fine. All right. Any correspondence at all?
Yes, there is. So I've got applications granted in support of this council's recommendation. Fairfield House, Ashcombe Road, replacement of main building and change of use to form 4 flats, demolition of outbuildings, refurbishment of cottage and conversion of workshop to provide 1 holiday let unit and associated works. Basement 18 Plantation Terrace, change of use from storage of theatrical costumes, props to storage and rehearsal space. And then we've got applications granted without consultation. These are all trees. 20 Winwood Lane, Holcombe, crown lift 1 cedar to 2 metres above ground, removing secondary and tertiary branches only to improve access. 10 Brook Close, Holcombe, Fell 1 Silver Birch, Lower Holcombe House, Holcombe Village, crown thin 1 oak tree by 25%.
Okay, thank you very much. We've had our business and comment by the members of the public, so we'll start with our first item, which is 20/00708, and this is 12A Port Road, Dawlish. I hope members have had a chance to have a look at this one. Yola, if you'd be so good to let us have a look. Brilliant. Okay, so we're going to be scrolling through these items. I just wanted to see if anyone had any thoughts as to this item and how it looks to them. I'm afraid I'm not able to see raised hands, so we'll just have to muddle through as we can. Does everyone know where this is?
Yeah.
Okay. So what we're dealing with here is a single-storey rear extension and a single-storey front porch, which, as you can see from those photographs, the front extension is really just joining that little gap there between the garage and the extension they've had previously, as I understand it when I looked at the plans.
Councillor Taylor's got his hand raised.
Thank you. I can't see. So, Councillor Taylor,
I couldn't unmute.
No,
we're getting there.
If you, yeah, can you unmute, Gary? And thank you.
I'm not on mute according to my thing here.
Fine. Off you go. What did you want to say? You can now.
I think that these are modest extensions to a house that was recently given permission to be a separate dwelling in the grounds, originally in the grounds of one of the large properties. When I say large properties, one of the properties with a large garden in Port Road. So I have no objection.
Are you proposing that we accept it as read? Are you making a proposition on that basis, or are you just?
I'd be happy to propose no objection.
Councillor Moorhead's got her hand raised.
Yes, Madam Chair, I was just going to comment. I agree with Councillor Taylor that this is a modest extension. I'm assuming that they've had to apply for planning because the original extension would have been under permitted development, and this is now over the percentage allowed under such. So I
understand
don't
that.
see any objections to it for that reason.
Okay, thank you.
This hand raise also?
I was going to second the proposal.
Thank you, Councillor Ridley. Does anyone else have anything else to say about this? We have a proposal to accept, but obviously I don't want to, you know, presuppose everyone if anyone has got any other points of view about this item.
Councillor Taylor has got his hand raised.
Sorry, me again.
That's all right.
I think it's probably, it may have come about as a planning application because of the previous, because of the fact that it was in the grounds of a house and has been given recent permission to be a separate dwelling. And it may have been that there would have been no existing development rights attached to this property when it was first built as a garage in the grounds of the original house. So
Okay.
I don't think so. From that point of view, that's why we're looking at a planning application, because PD wouldn't have been attached to it.
Okay. Okay. So if members are happy, we have a proposal to accept as there's no objection, and we've had that proposal seconded. Are you all happy to vote on that basis at the moment? And we'll see where we go with that. And if we don't get a majority, then we will look to continue the discussion. So can we have a vote then, please, for the proposal to accept as read? It won't be an electronic one because I don't think everyone can.
Oh,
so.
okay. Just when I found out how to do it.
I know. We'll eventually get there. That's unanimous, so that's fine. Thank you. We'll move on to the second item here, which, Yola, I think you've got something to tell us about this one. This is the 20/00608, a full planning permission for land adjacent to Hightor, 2 Cliff Road, Teignmouth.
Yes, I, like all of you, when you went onto the website, could not find it, so contacted Teambridge and was told that the application is invalid, so it's not currently available for getting consultation or anything like that.
So it's been withdrawn, so that's fine. We'll move on to the next one. And the next item is 20/00805, full planning permission for the site of Shell Cove House, 19 Old Teignmouth Road. This is a formation of 6 dwellings, garages and associated work. So we'll have a look at this, please, Yola. Thank you. Members, if you do want to speak, if you can say your name, because obviously I can't see your hands raised, and I'll do the best to make sure everybody is able to speak on this. So this is an item, this is not all of the land at the Shell Cove area where the cottages were, the holiday cottages that is. This is a small part of it, of the actual property of the land there, and this is a row of 6 houses, as you can see on the screen.
Oh, I was going to say, could we go back to it? I think it said something about aluminium cladding.
When I go all the way through again, tell me stop.
Okay.
Because I can't go backwards.
Okay. So as you can see, that's part of the land there. It's not.
Go back. Just that one.
It's the orchard. It's the orchard that we're talking about
No,
developing.
it wasn't that. It was another one that had red on it. Not that one. No.
I'll scroll slowly. If you want me to pause on any of them, just tell me.
Okay.
No. No.
That one.
No.
PPC aluminium coping. Sorry.
Yeah.
PPC aluminium window. I can't really quite make out what the rest of it is, but
Coping is above.
Yeah. Okay.
Did you want me to read the things above? I can see them on my screen.
Oh, well done you, because I can't read it.
Got 2 members with their hands raised, Chairman, Councillor Taylor and Councillor Heath. Just there.
Okay. Do you know who was first? I'm afraid I can't.
I can't see all screens at the same time as scrolling, I'm afraid.
Well,
Gary was first.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Heath. Appreciate that. Councillor Taylor.
Actually, that was up from last time, but I did want to speak on this, so happy to let Martin go first, especially as he lives quite close to Shell House.
Okay.
Shell Cove House.
Councillor Heath.
Okay, right. Yeah, I had a good look at this one because it's obviously the biggest one here.
Yeah.
A question first of all. I thought it was where the old cottages were, which of course have been pulled down and is now a big pile of earth. But it seems to be it's the other side, almost opposite the entrance by the power substation. Is that correct? First of all.
No, there is a plan that if you can scroll through, Yola, you'll be able to see. It's in an area called the Orchard. It is the shed. It does run off the old drive from there, but there is a shared drive there. But you'll see there's a schematic of plan.
Yeah. Okay. Do we know how far from the cliff edge it is? Obviously, there's been a lot of emphasis on the unstable cliffs, etc. Do we know from looking at these how many meters from the cliff it is?
As I understand it, the landscape plan that we've got there shows a red dotted line, which is the furthest forward that they were permitted to notwithstanding the member of the public we had here. So that was the furthest forward that the properties could be positioned.
So it's within that, but of course, you know, these lines are very old. There is no real government guidelines, as we know, of how near to build to a cliff. So it's our own judgment.
That kind of tells you where it is, I think.
Yeah. All right. Well, anyway, my reaction of it is, first of all, I'm surprised there wasn't an objection, because as far as I can see, there's not a list of objections on the website.
No, there's been no objections so far, but obviously this is the initial stage at town council level before potentially going into.
Although on Tingbridge, I would have thought there would have been, but anyway, that doesn't matter. We're making a decision as well. I am two-minded on this because it's a typical sort of seascape type house with the large windows overlooking the sea. And you do see some of these on sort of designed homes on BBC, for example.
Yeah.
But where it is, and amongst the other houses, it does seem to me that it's been helicoptered in and plonked down there, and it's completely not in keeping with the area. So there's a split of thought. Yes, it's a typical modern seaside, modern apartment outlook to sea. But if it was on its own, fine. But going and blending in, sure, it does not. So that's the dilemma for me. I don't object to them being houses. I agree it's a bit near the cliff, though we're not quite sure of the distance there. So on balance, purely on the design, I don't think I'd be in favour of it.
Okay.
Councillor Taylor and Councillor Moorhead with their hands raised also.
Thank you, Yola. Councillor Taylor?
Happy to for Councillor Moorhead to go before me.
Okay. Councillor Moorhead?
You need to unmute Councillor Moorhead.
2 or 3 things. The site was purchased by Pegasus Homes, who had large scale plans for the whole area. This is only part of the site. I believe from the application it's transferred to someone from Totnes.
Yeah.
It was an orchard. There are no trees of importance in the orchard. I would draw attention for future planning applications for the rest of the site that the Pegasus arboricultural report was awful. It was basically saying cut everything down, but it doesn't actually apply to this one, but something to bear in mind because these people have used that original report. It is very near to the edge of the cliff, and from memory, I'm pretty sure that it's Network Rail who now are responsible for that cliff edge. So what I would like to see before it goes any further is consultation with Network Rail as to whether this is too close to the actual cliff. I was there years ago when there were negotiations, and the responsibility for the cliff, down which there are steps, by the way, there is an access down to what passes as a beach. and it was taken over by the then existing, it wasn't called Network Rail then, I've forgotten what it was then.
Rail track.
Rail track, yeah. So there are things like that which I think ought to be on this application first. We ought to be aware of what Network Rail think. And I go along with Martin Heath, what this would look like from the sea. And we've got to remember, it doesn't matter. It's not just what we see from inland, it's what people see from the sea. And it would look awful. Whether it's overdevelopment, I don't know. But the bit of the, just behind where they have their gardens, but it is outside the area of your red line you referred to, Yola. I know for many years that detritus was tipped down there. So there's certainly part of that cliff that isn't as stable as as the rest. But I would have hoped that any, as was said by a member of the public, that there should have been a proper on-site geological survey linked with comments from Network Rail. Okay.
Thank you. Councillor Taylor?
Okay, thank you very much, Chair. So we have seen planning application for this site before. It was actually on the old tennis courts. It may also be. It may also have been in time the orchard, but as I recall, it was the old tennis courts. Sorry, I'm getting feedback.
Councillor Morhood, would you mind muting just while other people are speaking? Sorry.
So a similar but not the same scheme. It was 15025990 that we looked at. They were quite well alongside the other two monolithic structures that did come forward under the Pegasus scheme. Were for 6 semi-detached, 6 terraced, yes, effectively, cottages, very modern with sloping roofs, but set further down into the hillside. So this scheme is higher, but it also goes further towards the cliffs than the previous scheme. The other scheme had parking spaces for the cars in front.
Yeah,
So if anything was going to go down the cliff, it would be the cars rather than the houses. This one has the garages back behind the houses, so slightly higher. As the cross section shows, Branderton House, where Gareth or his son-in-law lives. Not quite sure of that relationship. Does look across the site, but it would have still oblique views that would be perhaps a little bit more affected by these houses. I'm disappointed really in this scheme. It's reverting to a more traditional type. They all look while not as nice to look at as the previous scheme. I'm unsure as to whether I'm in favour of these. So I should be calling it into committee, which is I know something that the gentleman was asking for earlier. It is something that I'd like to. We've seen some very interesting schemes come forward, which we were in favour of in the past. I would like to see this being called to committee. So from that point of view, I won't be voting on this today. I'm not a member of the planning committee, but just to show willing, I won't be voting on this today. But that's my view anyway.
Okay.
We've got Councillor Martin Wrigley got his hand raised, and Councillor Martin Heath also.
Okay, well, as Martin Heath has already spoken, we'll go to Martin Wrigley first, and then you.
Been waiting a while.
Thank you. I keep trying to remember what the old scheme was like, but to me, I can see 3 problems with this scheme. One, I'm not convinced on the design of it, as well, we've heard the comments on that earlier, so I think I'd echo those comments. Secondly, it does appear to be closer to the cliff edge, and that does give me cause for concern. And thirdly, I've been looking at the drainage reports, and there is an awful lot of tarmacked flat space in this development. You know, virtually the entire development is either roof or tarmac, which puts a lot of water directly into those cliffs. There doesn't seem to be much thought in terms of runoff and drainage and consideration as to how that's going to work. We know the problem with the cliffs is water, and it's nothing else. So I think this is not sufficiently thought through, and it's not an attractive development, really, is it?
Not really.
So I think I would certainly endorse Councillor Taylor's putting this into committee. I would suggest that we as a committee request this goes to committee, and I would see it as overdevelopment. I would see it as concern about the cliff edge. I would see it as concern about the design, and I would see it as concern about the drainage and the runoff from the hard surfaces.
Am I right in thinking, Councillor Wrigley, that as you are a member of the Teambridge Planning Committee, you won't be voting on this one at town level?
No, as a member of Teambridge Planning Committee, I'm entitled to vote on this at town level.
Okay.
I'm voting on based on the information that we see here. We will have further information presented to us at Teambridge Planning Committee, and I will be voting there again. It's entirely possible that further information may be presented that will change my mind. I will go into that with an open mind, as it works with all double hatters. That's entirely proper and due.
Thank you. Just wanted to give you that opportunity to explain that. Thank you.
Thank you.
We have Councillor Heath and Councillor then Councillor Moorhood with their hands raised.
Thank you. Councillor Heath.
Thank you very much. Just a little extra comment. First of all, I agree with Councillor Martin Wrigley on all the points. I think they're all very valid.
Yeah.
And on design, I'd like to make one other comment. It appears that the outside is some sort of concrete clad or precast. I'm not quite sure. We're going into the engineering side of it. If it is a concrete, however it's made, either in blocks or afterwards, I don't really think it's very acceptable doing concrete right next to the coast, because they tend to get very stained, and quite often they get algae growing all over them. Now, I know some people quite like that. It looks sort of traditional and it's oldie-weldy, but there are engineering problems with building anything next to a cliff. And strangely enough, brickwork is often quite ideal because bricks are quite porous, and so they sort of go with the wind, as it were, not in the wrong way. But the concrete doesn't. It just gets things growing on it. So I don't think that's a particularly wise design anyway. So it looks as if it's a non-runner on a number of points here, doesn't it, on the design? The good point on it is that it has got a sort of flat roof, which means that it isn't too towering over the cliff, as it were. But of course, it is 3 layers because they dug one out by the looks of it, and the other 2 are normal height. That's if I can understand the drawing there.
That's how I understand it, that the lower floor is going in, is dug in, yeah. In
the ground, yeah. Which, of course, again, is the point of worry, because they're digging into the cliffs and there's a lot of bashing and digging. So I think all our points are very valid for a refusal, in my personal opinion. Are you making a proposal? I'm very happy to do that we refuse on the points that have already been covered.
Martin,
don't we?
Still have hands raised.
Thank you. Who's the next person?
It's Councillor Foden, then Councillor Moorhood, and I think Councillor Taylor's got his hand raised again.
Thank you. Councillor Foden.
Thank you. I just wanted to say, I forgot to say at the beginning about this application. So when the previous application for this site came in 4 years ago for the Pegasus development, at that time I was on the planning committee and I did declare an interest because I was very good friends with the people that live at a house adjacent to this planning site, Shrimp House. I still know the people, but I'm not such good friends, so I don't feel that I need to declare an interest on this occasion. but I'd just like to say that compared to the Pegasus application, as both Councillor Taylor and Councillor Wrigley have pointed out, there's a lot more crammed into this application, and the actual site of this 6 dwellings is much closer to my friend's property. But because there's so much more crammed into such a small space and it's closer to the cliff, that is why I shall be objecting.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Foden. Councillor Moorhood, I believe your hand is raised.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you. If you'd like to go ahead. And then Councillor Taylor. You need to
Just to, am I through or not?
You are now, yes. You were muted and now you're back again. Thank you.
Unfortunately for the rest of you, yeah. I just wanted to add up and tie in. I agree that it should go to committee. I believe that we should recommend refusal at this stage without a proper geological survey regarding how close they are to the cliff, without consultation or their consultation with Network Rail, because I know those sandstone cliffs there are very friable. I think it's overimposing and it's unsympathetic by scale and by materials.
Correct.
Thank you. Yola, can we come back away from the plans? I think we're getting somewhere at this point. So Taylor, your hand is up, I think.
Yes, thank you, Chair. It actually sounds like we as a committee would like it to go to committee to be called in which case, if I'm not sure, do we vote to ask it to go to committee? Are we going to do that before we decide on what we're going to vote about the whole thing? In which case, if I don't have to call it in myself, then I'd be happy to. Then I would like to vote in any decision that we take, if I may, Chair. Yeah,
no, that's absolutely fine. I'm getting the impression that everybody is okay. I've got 3 hands up in front of me. Councillor Lowther, your hand was up first.
Thank you. I seem as if I'm the last but one, but I've been listening very carefully, and I agree with most things that people are saying. I still think that yes, it's just, to me, out of keeping with the area. I'm concerned about the cliff edge and the research that's been going on. So I will be, and it should go to full committee.
Thank you.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm at a loss to know. I think we have to. Sorry, Councillor Wrigley, you're just noticing your hand up there.
Can I put a proposal forward then that we refer this to full committee should the officer be minded to approve it?
Yeah, I second that.
Fabulous.
For the additional information, because those are really important things. The survey and input from Network Rail about that cliff, and I'm pretty sure they actually own the cliff technically.
Councillor Moorhood, are we going to add these 2 together then? That we're calling in and with points to be added. Are you comfortable with that, Councillor Wrigley?
I'm very happy. I don't mind whether we do 1 or 2 votes. So I'm happy to take all of the objection items that we've raised.
Okay.
Proposal as well.
It's got a point of order. I've got a point of order on that one.
Councillor Heath?
Well, I thought on a point of order, surely aren't we supposed to vote as a town council first of all and then refer it? Because otherwise we could end up not voting for what we're proposing to the council. I'm
trying to clarify the actual proposal, which looks like the 2 are going together, but I understand. I take your point. We are going to be taking a vote on this. Yola, you wanted to come in just quickly.
Well, until you vote to know whether you're minded to refuse or to accept it, I would imagine you would need to do that first and then say whether to refer it to committee if you're minded. That would make sense. I think that's the order we've done it before.
Yeah, that's absolutely fine. So we've had a proposal to refer this to the planning committee at Teambridge to call it in, but obviously we need a proposal to refuse or to accept. I'm getting the feeling that it's refuse. Is there anyone who's minded to do that? Sorry.
We probably all are.
Councillor Moorhood, I saw your hand first.
I'd like to propose that we refuse it on the grounds of the fact that there is no current geological survey, there is no submission from Network Rail. It's would appear to be rather overdevelopment and unsympathetic materials. I think that's probably enough to keep them going, really.
And I would second that one.
Thank you, Councillor Heath.
Could we add in, please, the concern about it being too close to the cliff and the lack of detail on dealing with surface water drainage?
Yes, I'm quite happy to add that.
Let's do that. Okay. Yola, have you got all of that? And the fact that we've got a first proposer and a seconder? Councillor Taylor, you wanted to come in?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I won't be putting my hand up until within that, within those comments are also the fact that it will be going, that we as a committee want it to be called in to the Planning Committee of Teignbridge.
Yeah, go.
Okay, that's absolutely fine. Well, as I understand it, we are voting at the moment on our decision of whether our proposal is to refuse this on these grounds. We're not actually talking about whether we're calling it in. That'll be dependent on how the vote goes for the proposal that's been made.
Right.
Chair, if I may, I don't think that we should split the two up.
Okay. We're on
Unless you have a vote on it.
May I ask, the officer's recommendation was that we did.
It was. Councillor Taylor.
I mean, you could put them all in together. I think it's quite clear that everybody is of the same view, so I think you could pair them together.
Yeah, we're pairing them together.
So I'm quite happy to add, and that we ask that it goes to full committee.
Should the officers at Teignbridge be minded to
accept? Yeah.
Okay. So let's vote on that basis. Everyone clear on what we're voting on?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Let's have a vote then, please. So voting for the proposal.
To refuse a proposal, don't you mean?
That's right. Well,
yeah.
We've only got one proposal on the table, Councillor.
Oh, right. That's okay. Making that clear then.
Thank you. Right. So moving on. Is everyone happy with that? Okay. Yep. And I'm just going to get my agenda up because we've... excellent. So let's move on.
Can we say goodbye to Gareth, Chair?
Yeah.
And although he would be welcome to watch the rest of the show.
I would imagine not. Thank you for your input earlier. Thank you.
Boring and stiff.
Okay. Let's move on to 20 oblique 00907 and 28 Cofton Hill, Cockwood. Now, I believe we have a public speaker for this one, Councillor Wrigley.
Yes, I'm withdrawing from the debate on the committee because I've declared an interest, but I'd just like to speak as a member of the public. So this is the house next door to me. In the last couple of years, it has been substantially increased in size. It's had an extension to the side, an extension to the back. The proposal today is to take the workroom on top of the garage and add to the workroom or storage room, as it says in the plans, a large window on the outside, or a larger window on the outside, which I don't see a problem with, a Juliet balcony on the outside, which I find a little bit strange, and changing a perfectly good flat roof into a slopey roof. Now, I don't see why you would need all of that extra stuff in a storage room. I'm slightly concerned that this is starting to look like overdevelopment. It's starting to look a bit peculiar, and I personally think it's out of keeping in the hill. I know there's an awful lot of large houses gone into the hill. I know there's an awful lot of interesting architectural houses gone into the hill, but I think this is a step too far, really. And at that point, I'll leave you to your considerations. I will go and sit in the waiting room for 5 minutes while you discuss it.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so has everyone had a chance to have a look at this? Yola, can you confirm that Councillor Wrigley's has left the meeting?
Yes,
Anything in
I
the
think I
waiting
put
room?
him in the waiting room, hopefully.
You think you have? Excellent. Okay. Has anyone got any thoughts or any concerns or positive or negative about this item that we have before us?
Have we got some more we can see?
It's literally just this one and the GIS plan. That's all that was
Yeah.
on.
Yeah, that gives you a location, and all of the plans and everything are actually on the one screen. It's one of those annoying plans with them all on there.
Gosh, that's not very informative.
On all of them, it does say storage, and I take Martin's point from that. If you have a Juliet balcony on storage item, where does it go?
Yeah, yeah.
Very odd. Yeah.
Okay.
It's a future dwelling, isn't it? Or could be.
Councillor Taylor has his hand raised.
Thank you, Yola. Councillor Taylor? We can't hear you, Gary, if you are speaking.
So it does seem rather strange that somebody would go to the expense of putting a pitched roof on a storage building, installing a double doors and a Juliet balcony, and going to also to the trouble of roof lights to the rear of this storage building when it's all about storage. From my point of view, if it looks like a duck and sounds like a duck, it's a duck. And this is living accommodation, and I think it's frankly. Well, I won't say what I was going to say. I am concerned that that the application is being put to us as changes of this nature when it's clearly something else. It's not an alteration. Well, they're calling it an outbuilding, but they're fooling nobody by saying that it's for storage. It's not. It's for living accommodation. Maybe it's for rental accommodation. So there are other hurdles to overcome, which will actually be building regs. But from a planning point of view, I completely disagree. I'm afraid with Councillor Rigby. I think it's an improvement in terms of the appearance of the building. I think that I always would prefer a pitch roof to a flat one. It's a very shallow pitch. And at the end of the day, if it is living accommodation that they're really looking to have here, well, I think that's something that the planning department would need to take account of. So from that point of view, from an architectural point of view, I have no objection.
Can I also make a comment, because it reminds me of a property I have seen that the actual building is being used as an artist studio, and I know I'm being a devil's advocate here, but the Juliet balcony might be a step too far, but the light and the large window, etc., pitch roof, it could be that one end of the building, I don't know which end that's pointing. It could. There are other uses, but I do appreciate what's been said. I have no connections with this building at all. There are other options that can be made, but I do appreciate what's been said. Are there any other hands raised, Yola? Sorry, I can't see any.
Councillor Moorhead.
Thank you, Councillor Moorhead.
Only just. Sorry, am I unmuted?
You are.
Okay. No, I don't suppose we can ask, but my query back of my mind is no objections, subject to it being not for residential use. But I don't think we can use that.
Okay. Chairman, you're muted now.
Thank you. Any other points need to be made? Any other points?
Councillor Heath is raised.
Councillor
Yes.
Heath.
Hello, we're on. Yes. Big problem being with this is the drawings, the tiny little drawings. It's not very easy to make a decision without doing a site visit, which is just unfortunate. So it is very hard to come to a really good conclusion on this. I see no problem with a flat roof, especially with modern materials. Architectural, that's personal beauty, I guess. But if it was to go ahead, I assume that if they were then to use it for residential use, they would have to come back to planning, unless there's a way to cheat and sort of use it and not actually ask for planning, because that does happen sometimes, because you can't tell the difference sometimes. The curtains change and that's it, but things change inside. So there's the worry there. Otherwise, it should be protected, because it should come back to planning if they want to use it as a residential building. So if anyone with longer experience on planning will give me a bit of advice on that, is that something that happens frequently? Could they easily do that, or would it always be spotted and go back to planning?
I think it would be, in my opinion, it would be probably something for enforcement to look at if neighbours were unclear as to the use of the property. But I think Councillor Moorhood has almost given us the solution here. I mean, if it was made to with the proviso that we give this the go ahead, or with the proviso that it isn't for residential use. Yeah,
That's if they listen to it, I guess. Yeah. Okay.
Are there any other hands raised? Yola, can we go back to the? Sorry.
Oh, Councillor Lowther, I think, is raising her actual hand.
Okay. Thank you.
I've got a wooden one hidden. No, I'm just going with Councillor Taylor. I think putting the pitch roof on improves it. I personally do not like flat roof extensions. So I think that improves the building. But again, I agree with the proviso, because it just looks. I think maybe we could even not have the balcony, because it may be not, that's not in keeping, it's not needed. So for the storage room. That's my view, anyway.
Councillor Taylor, did I see your hand up?
Yes. Again, I don't have any objection to the balcony. I think there are few houses in Cockwood. Let me putting this as diplomatically as I can. Few houses in Cockwood without a balcony. It's facing east, so yes, it would have a good artist's light from that point of view. I think it would be a nice addition to the house. And if they were to say, oh well, yes, it's an artist's studio. And not perhaps we could overlook a mistake being made that it's being used for storage. It's clearly not. But from a building roof point of view, if it did need to conform to certain standards, then there might be the case that the roof would have to be raised so that insulation material of the right thickness could be put in. It could be done without it, but it makes the work a lot more difficult, because you then can't just have a flat roof and plonk a pointy hat on top. You've got to restructure it completely. So from that point of view, I don't dislike it, because I have no objection to it, because it's a low pitch. It's hardly any higher than the flat roof that it would replace. So there we are.
Councillor Moorhead, raised.
Would I be right in saying that if these changes were made to it, at some time in the future, they could simply apply for change of use if we've already made it acceptable as a residential property?
At the moment, we're talking about it as a storage property.
Yes, but that's what I'm.
I guess change of use, in other words,
Yeah.
There's no saying what could come in the future. We just have to concentrate on what we've got before us. But I appreciate your point, Councillor Moorhood. We're in a situation where we haven't got any proposals at the moment, so I'm getting the feeling that the majority of people are happy in general with what they see before them. They're just concerned about the implications of and the use of this building when it's saying storage, and we're looking at a Juliet balcony and a pitch roof. Am I right with that?
My point, I'm sorry, my point of removing the Juliet balcony makes it more informative that is what we expect it to remain. As a storage building, you've got that balcony on, it looks as if it's a house, and I think that we should make comment about the balcony. That's my objection really, is the balcony. The rest I've no objection to. So
Okay.
Councillor Taylor has his hand raised.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor.
Okay, two things about the balcony. Two other things about the balcony. I've spoken about it previously. The first is that with double doors opening down to the ground, building regs would insist that you have a way of stopping that. So either the double doors aren't double doors, they become windows above plain glass non-openers, or you have a balcony. So if you have to my mind, actually, the balcony adds something to the building. It adds horizontal elements and actually makes the building, together with the new roof, actually look less square, less oblong, and less like a brick stuck on its end. It looks the horizontal elements actually compress it slightly visually, so it improves the look of it.
Yeah, but it's supposed to be a storage building, not.
On the other hand,
but even if but I don't mind how we improve the look of anything, whatever it's for. And to my mind, this is what this does. What they do behind those doors is perhaps their business, really, as long as they don't come back and say, oh, we need to make it 10 foot higher so that we can get the insulation in.
On the other hand, we could simply say that we don't feel that the balcony is necessary for a storage building.
Well, this is what I'm saying, but
I back out, you carry on.
Okay. We're kind of going around in circles here. Is anyone happy to make a proposal, one way or the other, whether we accept or we deny this item?
We're all.
Councillor Heath, you kind of put your finger up at the same time as Councillor Taylor.
Not a proposal, just an added comment about that Juliet balcony. I agree with Councillor Taylor. The thing is, if you want to put a balcony in to make it look fancy, well, okay, that's up to them. It is a bit over the top. If it is just storage, we don't know. But looking at it as it is, it's not an offence to have a Juliet balcony in a hay barn if they want it, as long as it goes with everywhere else. Yeah, we are suspicious, of course. So if we could tag on, as one or two of you've already said, that it can't just go straight through without an additional comment, which we need to word at the moment, that it shouldn't be able to convert straight away to a residential building. So that's what the wording we need to do. Otherwise, it's going to be hard to vote yes on it.
Okay.
Taylor,
Taylor, is your hand still up?
Okay, so I have a proposal.
Thank you.
No objection, but we have concerns that the building will remain as storage, and would not wish to see the eaves or the ridge raised in order to accommodate any other to accommodate anything that would be required, anything that would be required by building regs. So that's my proposal, and I'm saying this because I have been asked by another councillor, not in Dawlish, who was concerned that applicants were making applications in the knowledge that they were going to change things afterwards, and that could have an impact on other people's amenity. And by a degree would the raising of a roof here have that effect. But I think it would send a message that actually yes, we don't want people to be making minor amendments later, because other people may consider that those minor amendments, they may be minor to us, they may be major to somebody else.
Yeah. Okay. That
so
seems
it's a long
a good
speech
solution.
for a short proposal.
Yeah, that seems like a good version of a good way of putting it. So you're going to propose a Councillor Taylor. Is anyone happy to second that?
Could Yola repeat it?
Because I am.
Could Yola repeat it for us?
Yes, so it's no objection, but you have concerns that it remains as storage and you would not like to see the ridge or the eaves raised, so it becomes
To allow
A living, livable room. Yeah.
livable room.
Yeah, livable room.
Okay.
So essentially, you're saying that you're
residential use.
agreeing to what the actual proposal is, and not any conjecture as what they might be doing later.
Yeah.
No.
Yes.
Okay. So we've had a proposer and a seconder with that. So let's go to a vote, please. Okay. For the proposal.
Although,
Reluctant.
Reluctant, yes.
Okay.
Difficult.
I'm not voting.
Anyone?
Okay.
I was just going to say, anyone against the vote? Thank you.
There's one. Yeah.
Councillor Tamlin. I think everyone has voted now.
So a majority.
I can't say yes. I can't see you on the screen, so we've got a majority. Sorry, Yola. Councillor, I'm calling you wrong councillor tonight. There you go. Okay. Okay, we'll move on to the next item.
May I add Councillor Wrigley back into the room?
We better invite
yes,
Councillor Wrigley back in. Yes, please.
get him out of the cupboard.
How do you spell suspicious? I'm just doing my notes.
Councillor.
He's had his dinner. Well,
He'll have to wait to the minutes.
What's that? To see what's happened?
Yeah.
I can peek through the door and look on Facebook. You're being broadcast live.
I bet you were, yes.
Exactly.
Oh.
On the other
are we?
screen.
Ah.
really?
Okay. Let's carry on, members, to 20/000857, which is 26 to 27 The Strand in Dawlish. And we're looking at a proposal for a replacement of 5 windows, 1 entrance door to the rear, replacement of a window to the side elevation, and replacement of 3 windows to the front. Councillor Wrigley.
I understand the concerns of the conservation officers in terms of replacement windows, but I think in many cases that is trumped by the climate crisis that we are facing. And I think replacing single glazed traditional windows with new windows that are similarly slidey sash windows in the same design, the only thing that is different is the material and in fact the colour. So I don't quite see why they don't make them in black, but perhaps they don't do plastic windows in black.
They do.
They do?
They do. I believe they do black, and they also do them in a browny colour. The only thing with black, they're not that happy with it, is that the sun sometimes makes it go grey in about 10 years, so they're not happy to sell it.
Well, in that case, I see no problem with this, and I think it's something that should be encouraged. And I think insisting that these old houses cannot improve their insulation is something that, whilst I fully accept and fully approve the keeping the conservation area, so long as the windows are in the style, I have no problem with them being replaced with double glazed windows. So they are sash windows in the same style as the existing ones, and in that case I would have no objection to this, and I would propose we have no objection.
I think others need to speak.
Councillor Lather,
Yeah.
you got your hand, you got your pencil up. There you go.
The point is that is this a listed building?
Yes, it is.
Thank you.
Second degree listed.
So that makes the matter completely different about deciding whether we're going to put wooden windows in or not. It is a listed building. The conservation officer or the planning officer has suggested that it goes with the, I presume, wooden windows to blend in with conservation and to blend in with the listed building. Should not be trying to rewrite the rules on that. So I would agree with the conservation. I'm not sure whether it is the conservation officer or whether it was just the planning officer.
It is the conservation officer, Councillor Lather.
And I totally agree with him, and that's,
Sorry, that was my pen falling on the floor.
yeah. I totally agree with his comments
Thank you.
and disagree with Councillor Wrigley's comments about using modern material in a building.
We've got Councillor Foden, Moorhead and Heath with their hands up. I'm not sure of the order, I'm afraid, because I can't see all of you at once.
Could we have? Is everyone happy to go back to the screen, because we can? I think there's many pictures to look at, so it's easy to do that way. So Councillor Heath, Councillor Foden, and was it Councillor Moorhead who wanted to speak?
Right. Okay.
Councillor
Yes.
Heath.
Right. Thank you, Madam Chairman. So the simple correction on Windows, as I used to do window design, if you can, this is obviously PVC they're asking for. I'm correct on that one, first of all?
That's right. Yeah.
Right. Okay. And they're asking for white. Is that right?
Yeah.
Or they're going for black?
Like for like, so I think it was.
Okay. We won't worry about the colour for the moment because the conservation officer do that. The thing is, you can have wooden windows in the same design as they are, virtually, I won't 100% say the same, but virtually as draft proof as PVC. And because it's not really about double glazing, it's about window design. Most windows these days are double glazed or treble glazed. So forget, I think it's a red herring about the double glaze. They will all be double glazed. It's the material. The material can be wood and it can be made nearly as draft proof. But the problem being is that the wood window, especially made bespoke window, is about 4 times dearer. And that's why they go for the PVC. But if it's a listed building, that's not our problem. The thing is, it's a listed building and therefore it should be wood. It's as simple as that, unless the listed building officer changes their mind. But the thing is, wood is possible and it's almost the same insulation. In fact, wood is a very, very good insulation, probably better than plastic. So there isn't a problem on the design on the windows whatsoever. So we've got to say, do we just pass it over to him, or do we just say yes or no? That's what I see anyway.
We have got one other person who wanted to speak. Councillor Foden, Councillor Moorhead, I believe. Yes, want to speak.
Thank you.
Councillor Foden, if you'd like to carry on.
Thank you. I'd like to second Councillor Wrigley's proposal. You can get some very nice designs and nice colours in UPVC, and as Dawlish Town Council has declared the climate emergency, this application is for the flats above 1 stop, and I'm just aware that it's much easier to conserve the heat and to keep heating bills down with double glazing, with with proper insulated windows. I'm babbling now. Sorry, get back to the point. I support Councillor Wrigley's proposal.
Okay.
And let's go with it.
Proposal was to reject the, as I understand it, Councillor Wrigley, it was to go against the recommendation of the conservation officer and recommend that we accept this as read. Is that right?
If I may, Chair.
Yeah.
I can just read to you some of what the conservation officer said that I find particularly difficult. It says, and I take on board Councillor Heath's comments and would happily suggest that yes, we should insist on wood replacement. The conservation officer says, and I quote, "There is no justification for replacing the windows." It says they should be repaired. So what I think we should be doing is, yes, I will quite happily say we want wooden windows instead, quite happily to change that. But it is saying that they go on to say, it would be expected that bespoke windows to match the existing are proposed, with existing and proposed details, including cross-sectional glazing bars, meeting rails. So what they're saying is they can't put double glazing in.
Yeah.
Now that's what it says in that thing. That I find objectionable. I would find a comment that says they have to replace them with something that matches the old, fine. But what they're saying is don't replace the windows, repair what you've got and don't put in double glazing. And that I find problematic.
Councillor
you for that.
Morhood has had her hand raised for a
I
little
was
while.
just going to come to her. Councillor Morhood.
Building with sash windows, so I am aware of the problems and pros and cons, and I wouldn't be allowed to just take them out and put UVC in. I circulated today, I was looking for a different reason, but I came across the conservation area character assessment, and I circulated this to everybody again to remind people, and you'll see even there how the town has become degraded because we haven't watched some things. And yes, it's a matter of balance between owners and all the rest of it. And you also saw, I sent around the actual management plan. And I think it's page 9 in the management plan that refers to UPVC windows. And you will recall that we've already had cases called in the Strand.
Yep.
And one directly at the bottom of Queen Street, where there's been enforcement orders on people who've put in unsuitable UPVC. I would be happier to see the applicant work with the listed building, the conservation officers, to come up with something they can agree on, that it is in character with the town, but also, as Councillor Heath was saying, also allows the owners to improve the heating capacity, the retention of heat in the building. I know, for example, that it's possible to get secondary glazing to go inside my sash windows. However, I then couldn't shut my inside shutters, so I have a problem. I can't do that. But that is possible because secondary glazing can be made so that it completely matches all the bars and it's virtually undetectable. So there are other ways around it. But if it was just going to be the usual bog standard flat profile UPVC, it's going against the very things that we've got this character assessment and management plan in place to try to retain.
Okay.
Councillor Heath and Councillor Taylor with their hands raised.
Thank you. Councillor Heath first.
Thank you. Yeah, I actually, when Councillor Martin Wrigley was reading the report, I found it quite weird actually, because the officer seems to be, me saying this, but contradicting himself in a way. He's saying it must be repaired, or there comes a point anyway, that's the first thing, that it can't be, it's just too rotten. We don't know the condition of it. I don't think a real bad condition report has been put in. So we can't really answer that one. And there seems to be a clash between replacing it and keeping the heat in. But I think actually it can be done, and we can compromise both those things. And it's quite simple. If it's a conservation area, as far as I've understood since I've joined planning, it should stick with what it is unless it's totally impossible building-wise to do it. Or at the present moment, it's not a problem. They can make a wooden window. Yes, it's tough. It's going to be 4 times dearer, but they can be made with double glazing. I don't understand what he means you can't put double glazing in, apart from secondary glazing, which we know we can do. You can get small sealed units that go into a wide rebate window, and you can use special beading. You can do, if you've got 4 or 6 panes or whatever it is in there, you can do 6 individual sealed units fitted into it. So I'm not sure if he's talking building as a builder or just as a planner, but one way or the other, something doesn't add up there.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Councillor Taylor, you had your hand up.
Yeah, I did. It's a very difficult decision, I think, this one. Yes, we do want to see people with better insulation in their houses. I don't think UPVC is the way forward, and I would hope that if we do come to a vote on whether to allow, well, the application, I mean, maybe the applicants make it easier for us. They are saying that they want UPVC windows. I'm not sure whether Alison would support UPVC windows rather than timber, but I think, as she's indicated, that she supported Martin earlier when Martin said that he wouldn't object to UPVC replacement windows. Having heard now that they are available double glazed in timber,
Yeah.
but that the officer is suggesting that they should be repaired. I think there's certainly, if we look at the grand scheme of things, the amount of energy that's being used to make all these new bits of glass and bits of timber and having them installed, repair is a way forward, and many people do. And there's a property in Queen Street where the chap has painstakingly rebuilt a single glazed bay window, only to recently have his lovely ornate gates crashed into. Fortunately, they didn't hit the window. So it can be done. Put an extra jumper on, or put some secondary glazing in, as Councillor Moore has suggested. But I couldn't support this application with UPVC windows.
Thank you. Councillor Moorhood.
I just propose that we pay attention to the conservation area management plan and ask that the conservation officer works with the applicant to arrive at a sensible and acceptable solution.
So that's your proposal. Is anyone happy to second that? So we're voting to follow the guidelines of the conservation officer and refuse it. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, but request that they work with the applicant to come up with a good solution.
That's fine. Councillor Tamlin, you got your hand up, and then Councillor Lowther.
No, I'm fine.
To second it.
To second it. Thank you. I thought that's what you were going to say. Okay, so we've got two opposing, as I understand it. Councillor Wrigley.
My fundamental feeling is that we need to find a way to enable people to restore these houses and these areas so that they are useful and livable in. If we don't allow any form of improvement, such as double glazing or improving the heat properties of these houses, whilst at the same time trying to balance the preservation aspect of it, these houses become unusable, unlivable in, and they die. And we've seen what happens. Look at Weech Road when it gets beyond repair. So I'm quite happy to back down from the initial and to remove my proposal from the table. But I would like to stress that we want the conservation officer to find a practical way, as Councillor Heath was describing, where they can work with, as Councillor Moorhood was saying, work with the resident and actually find a solution that improves the thermal property of the house, because they've got to be able to do something. And at the moment, we have too many properties where they are not allowed to replace drafty windows, and they've been trying to do so for years and years, and they're turned down on conservation principles.
And listed.
We've got to improve the thermal performance of our housing stock. That's 45% of the emissions in this country are down to losing heat in housing, I understand. So if we don't allow people to actually improve the thermal insulation through the windows of properties like this, which is and that's what made me so cross when I read the conservation officer's statement. It's a straightforward, by the book answer that doesn't think about the real world and the climate emergency. And Councillor Moorhood has it exactly right. Let's see if they can work with the applicant to actually come up with a solution that everybody is happy with. But they've got to move on things like double glazing, which they don't appear to in their statement here.
Okay.
I would just like to clarify that according to the management plan, it's the UPVC that they're against, not double glazing as such.
Exactly.
And that's fine. I'm happy with that.
Okay. So you're, as I understand it, you're happy to withdraw your initial proposal.
Yes.
Councillor Foden, are you comfortable with that as you seconded the proposal?
I did. I just want to echo what Councillor Wrigley's just said, because I'm worried the applicant doesn't live here. They live up country. I'm worried that if they're not allowed to replace those windows, the flat that they rent out will become unsuitable or undesirable because of it's so drafty and expensive to heat, and goes against our climate emergency principles. But I would go along with double glazing if it can be done in wood.
Thank you. Okay. So that was proposed by Councillor Moorhood and seconded by Councillor Tamlin. Martin, you had your finger up. Martin Heath, you had your finger up to speak.
Yeah, I've probably gone past the point of saying it now, but I think one of the things we're probably forgetting is it is part of it is the colour. I'm looking at the photograph at the moment on my other screen, and of course it is black, as we talked about a long time back. Black plastic is a bit of a problem, even though it can be done, but most manufacturers don't make it now. So, but it can be got, but it's very expensive again. So if that is a problem, they would have to do wood, because you know the plastic in black might well be a problem. But I totally agree. Obviously, I would agree that we've got to make these old houses livable and warm. And single glazing, quite honestly, today is just totally crazy. And it isn't just about the temperature. When you have a single glazed window, you get oodles of condensation in the winter. The place is damp, it goes mouldy. You know, we've got to do something about them. Otherwise, they just become derelict. So we need to make a decision. And I agree with what's been said. We need to pass it back to them to make a sensible decision that probably will be a compromise.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Heath. Well, we've got a proposal to. Well, how do you want the wording to be, Councillor Moorhood, as you're the proposer? And Councillor Tamlin is the seconder. Councillor Taylor is also waving at me as well. So
we take into account what the Conservation Officer said. We refer to the Conservation Area Management Plan and ask that the officer and the applicant work together to find a reasonable solution which allows the double glazing as such.
Thank you. Okay, and Councillor Taylor, you wanted to come in as well?
Yes, so I believe we should object to the use of UPVC, and we should object to the change to white. So we should object to white UPVC windows instead of black wood ones.
That's more or less what we're doing by saying we go along with what the saying.
Yeah, absolutely.
I've got every sympathy with these people, because I've been through similar. Well, I haven't actually tried that one, but I've had to have things made bespoke in wood again, because it's a listed building.
Yeah. Councillor Ripley?
Can we apply the same decision to both of the applications, please? Because we have one which is a full application, one which is listed building.
Oh yes,
absolutely. I was going to come to that actually. There are the two, one's listed building, and obviously two apply to that, so that's absolutely fine. So I think we're ready to have a vote. So if we can vote on Councillor Moorhood's proposal for, go on, Yola, can you give us the wording that you have down, please?
Well, I've got the wording. So is it essentially that you are refusing the application in line with the Conservation Officer? Because you are obviously, so I've got the information about the heat and light to refer to the Conservation Area Management Plan to find a practical way to work with the resident to improve the thermal property of the house. Double glazing is needed, but you object to white UPVC.
Well, any UPVC, I believe it was.
As in the management plan, page 9.
As in the management plan.
Well, black PVC is okay, but
it simply says
I don't need to put that in
the conservation area, because it alters the character. That is already in there. It doesn't say they can't have double glazing. It doesn't say there aren't other ways to do it. It's just a case of the applicant, we don't know if it's a resident, the applicant and the Conservation Officer working together to come up with a sensible solution, isn't it?
I think that's the best situation from that point of view, yes. So let's have a vote on that. Everyone in favour? We all are. Thank you.
Good.
So that's both the reference 20/000857 and 20/858, Yola, from that point of view.
Yes.
So we're going to move on to number 9, application from Devon County Council. This seems awfully familiar, and I don't think we have any other updates to this as yet, do we, Yola?
No, and basically it, as you might remember, it came through separately from Devon County Council as a late item, so it went on the last agenda, but then it did appear on the weekly list via Teambridge. But in the meantime, your comments were submitted last time, and you would have seen the response that we got back when I sent out the agenda. So I put it on the agenda just in case those comments and the travel plan was available. They are going to reconsult, but I have checked and those plans aren't on there yet. So obviously your current comments would stand until we hear anything else, but it was merely on the agenda in case we did get lucky and they had submitted them.
We weren't sure we were going to get any more comments at this stage, so I think it's taken us to Councillor Morford.
Oh, I just noted today I was reading some of the objections and so forth, which, you know, we're aware of. And they're right, the stuff is so tiny, even with my beloved magnifying glass, I can't see a lot of the details on that application. And if I can't and we can't, I'm darn sure that other electors can't.
Yeah.
I think it's very bad the way they've published it, but we can't really put that in at this stage, I suppose.
No, I mean, I'm right in thinking, Yola, this will come up should there be other opportunities. We've given we had a full discussion in the last meeting, and as you know, they've all been noted on the Teambridge website. So if there are any subsequent comments or anything else that we need to do, that will be on the next agenda. Is that right? Yeah.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. So if you're happy, members, we'll move on to the last one, last item, which is really just where observations are requested here. We're not voting for or against. This is 20/000788, and it's the land, I won't give you the reference number, off Greenway Lane, Dawlish Water in Dawlish, and it's a livestock and storage building. So if you have looked at this, members, you'll know that we're just looking at boxes in the middle of a green field from that point of view.
It's a pretty red box.
It is. It is.
And I don't know if I'm going to get vehicles to it because I couldn't see a roadway anywhere.
No, and this is the kind of plan. Again, we've got another box here, and it's bedded area, food, and access and storage at the front. So that's the floor plan of the red box that we're looking at there.
My concern is when you've got animals in overwintering, you're going to produce an awful lot of
hot air.
Build a house on the top. You're going to produce an awful lot of runoff.
Yeah.
And I can't see any provision anywhere there for any kind of storage tanks or septic tanks for removing it, or lagoons that other farms sometimes build. I can't see any facility for that.
It looking at the border of the land, there is a line that's taking it to the lane there, off Greenway Lane, I guess. So there would be an access route there, and I suppose that is why they've situated in this case on the map we're looking at a yellow box, but where the box is at that access point there. But yeah, it's a point to be made. That's what's there at the moment, the photographs. So not really a lot to go on, but I think it's a valid point. Councillor Morwood.
Taken into account the screening. Some of it is quite substantial already, and they have got a plan there for extra plant. But I really wonder what's going to happen to all the manure and runoff from the animals that are housed there in the winter. It doesn't seem to be any way to dispose of it or store it.
Chair, if I may.
Yeah, sorry. Unless you speak, I don't know who wants to speak. So
no, that's fine. It's
Councillor Heath and Taylor as well.
I think the difficulty here is we don't see the lay of the land, and I'm finding it difficult to actually position exactly where this is going to be and how visible it's going to be.
Yeah.
We had a similar barn to this came up when I was on Starcross Parish Council, and to this day I regret not putting a stipulation on it when they put in a barn that was bright silver and very visible everywhere.
Yeah.
So my suggestion, my observation would be it should be painted in camouflage covers. It should be painted appropriately for the countryside, either a sort of a green or a brown or something that makes it blend in, not a bright red roof and a bright shiny silver outline that makes it look very obvious to one and all. It's a very straightforward condition that could be applied, that it's constructed of in a colour that actually blends into the background.
Not bright red.
Not bright red or bright yellow.
Not bright silver.
Yes. I think that is, well, they're asking for comments and observations. I think those are two valid points. If you can you jot those down? And I think it is a case of asking members for any other points to be made. I think Councillor Moorhood has already added runoff, etc. from that point of view. Councillor Taylor.
If I may also comment on the runoff, one of the plans we saw showed a pond not that far away from this site, which sort of implies that this would run downhill towards that site, which makes it then even more important that there is no pollution of that pond or watercourse.
There should be a lagoon or whatever retaining any runoff or
waste matter. Yeah. Okay. I think that's a valid point as well.
Martin, that's obvious, isn't it? It could contaminate that.
Yeah. Absolutely. Councillor Heath, you had your hand up, I believe.
Yeah, I was just trying to scroll through on the other screen to see exactly what they're saying about storage again. So could somebody help me again? What are they proposing again for putting in this? They're
terming it as an agricultural building, but when you look at the plan that we have, it's penciled in for livestock, pens and feed, and a storage area as well. So I think what they're doing is being very flexible with this space. They do keep, if I remember from the documentation I read earlier, they do keep cattle here.
Right. Okay. So
cattle and sheep.
Right. So I think the main thing here then, as it's already been said by Martin Wrigley, that is, we just make sure, because we don't know what the colour is for sure, that the outside of the building is not a bright silvery, but blends in with the countryside, some sort of nice green or something like that.
Yeah.
Should mention it.
Thank you. And Councillor Taylor, you had your hand up. Councillor Lowther, did you want to speak as well?
Well, I was just going to say, in the information, they talked about lambing. They were going, that's mainly what it was using for, was lambing and maybe over winter.
And, yes, and overwintering young calves and so forth. Aberdeen Angus.
Okay. Councillor Taylor, you had your hand up. Thank you.
I did. Thank you, Chair. Yes, the elevation that we're looking at does actually have the building coloured in green with a sort of a reddish colour bottom half and a grey roof. So I don't think I do think the applicant is trying to make it blend in with the scenery. So I'm sure he wouldn't mind us at least making a comment that the colours that are being indicated would be appropriate, rather than trying to demand something. It does look like it's already there. So I have looked at it on the map. I have looked at the contours of the land. It is on highish ground, but as you can see from the photographs, it's pretty well screened, and there are and the applicant has again said that where there are gaps around the field, he's intending on putting some switches in to replace those. I know the family. They are local farmers, have been for a long time, and from that point of view, I would feel fairly confident that that what we're looking at here is a bona fide application. So from that point of view, I would have. Well, we're not here to object. We're only to make comment. No. So other than the fact that we would like them to stick to the colour scheme that they've proposed, that would be my only comment.
Are we sure that's a proposal for a colour scheme, or just somebody's artistic?
Well, it's their colouring, not mine.
Yeah, can we go back to the faces, please?
I agree with what Martin said.
Sorry,
Martin
Martin
Wrigley said what he said.
Thank you.
About the colour.
Okay. Well, are there any other observations? I think everyone's had a chance to say something so far, but you're looking. You read back what we've got as our observations, please.
At the moment, I've got that it needs to be painted in a sympathetic colour, a green or brown, so it blends in with the area, and there's concerns or clarification regarding runoff.
Yeah.
And on disposal of
Animal waste.
animal waste. You got it. So it is,
Okay.
especially with lambing and so forth, it's not just straw.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh,
Are there any other points anyone wants to add to that? I think we've kind of covered it, but I want to give members a chance.
Good.
Okay. Well, that was our last item. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for your time.
I can go and have a gin and tonic now.
You can go and have a gin and tonic now, yes.
Thank you, Lynn.
Thanks,
Before
everybody.
we go, can I ask a question, Mark? Because everyone's there. Though it's probably Yola would know the answer anyway. Do we have a report back from Teambridge on 20 or 22 South Downs at all? Did the officer turn that one down that we rejected to 100%? Do we know if there's been a decision on that?
If it's not come forward and has been read out as correspondence, then it's not come to me as yet.
Right. So maybe they've done something with it, because it should have come back to this spot by now, shouldn't it?
Can I just clarify whether the meeting is now closed, just so I know for the live stream and for the recording?
It
Yes.
is, yes. Meeting is
By
now
all means,
closed.
carry on afterwards, but just, yeah.